Welcome, the anointed ones. The scariest part about truth is not that people can't handle it, it's that they never expected you to survive long enough to speak it. Think about this. Historians estimate that at least 90% of ancient sacred texts have either been destroyed, altered, or buried. That means the world has been walking around with a patchwork version of reality, edited, filtered, and polished to keep certain people in power. Now here's the disturbing twist. If humanity hides truth in vaults, imagine what it does to a chosen one who is the truth in flesh. See, you weren't just born, you were smuggled into this world. While everyone else got baby showers and lullabies, you got silent contracts on your destiny. They didn't hate you because of your mistakes. They hated you because of your potential. From day one, your existence was an alarm clock in a world addicted to sleep. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still unbroken, still carrying knowledge that bends reality. That fact alone should make you laugh, because if life were fair, by now you should be nothing more than a forgotten name on a family whisper. But apparently, God had a sense of humor. He made sure the very people who tried to bury you would one day have to sit front row as you rise. So open your eyes wider now. What I'm about to reveal is not the feel-good, chosen one narrative they like to preach in storybooks. This is the raw file, the unedited truth, the disturbing layers of what it really means to be set apart. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Number 1. Being chosen means you were born into war, not privilege. Being chosen is often glamorized as though it comes with ease, blessings, and instant authority. But the disturbing truth is that it means the opposite. From the very beginning, your life is a battlefield. You weren't born into calm waters, you were born into a storm. Before you had the strength to defend yourself, opposition had already marked you. It wasn't because of anything you did, it was because of what you carried. To be chosen means you were born into war, not privilege. Every step of your existence is monitored, opposed, and challenged, because your destiny unsettles powers that would prefer you never wake up to who you are. Look closely at your life, and you'll notice the signs. Struggles came to you earlier, heavier and more frequently than those around you. While others were allowed to stumble gently through life, your path was littered with sabotage, betrayal, and hidden enemies disguised as helpers. That wasn't random. The attacks didn't come to test your patience. They came to break your spirit before you realized your value. You weren't allowed the luxury of ignorance. You had to learn harsh lessons through pain that others will never even encounter. Being chosen also means you walk around carrying a spiritual target on your back. Forces you cannot see, and sometimes people you should have been able to trust, worked against you without even understanding why. They sensed something different about you and acted out of an instinctive hostility. To them, your light was an irritant. To higher forces, your existence was a threat. That is the truth no one likes to admit. Being chosen is not celebrated, it is contested. The disturbing part is how this battle shapes you. You never got the soft training others had. Your lessons came through abandonment, through rejection, through being misunderstood. You were forged in unfairness because softness could not have produced the steel required for your calling. The very pain you thought would destroy you was, in fact, preparation for the authority you now carry. The war wasn't punishment, it was confirmation. If you've been fought this hard all your life, it's not because you were cursed. It's because your destiny is so disruptive. Hell itself had to intervene early. Number 2, your innocence was the bait they wanted to corrupt. Your innocence was never something the world wanted to preserve. It was the very thing they wanted to corrupt. From the earliest moments, there was a strange pull around your life, people drawn to you not to protect your purity but to disrupt it. The disturbing truth is, the attacks weren't random. They were calculated attempts to soil the very thing that made you different. Purity, whether of heart, mind, or intention, stands out in a corrupt world. It shines, it unsettles, and it calls people higher. But instead of rising, many chose to drag you lower. This is why your earliest experiences often carried undertones of betrayal, manipulation, or exposure to things you weren't ready for. The world tested you by trying to stain you, because a corrupted chosen one is easier to control than a clean one. Your mistakes weren't just about you slipping up. They were traps carefully designed to distort your image of yourself. The hope was that if you no longer saw yourself as clean, you would live beneath your calling. They didn't want to destroy your body. They wanted to destroy the confidence you had in your spirit. It's uncomfortable to admit, but much of the pain you went through wasn't because you deserved it, but because you carried something rare. They recognized it before you did. People around you sensed a kind of purity in your spirit, and instead of protecting it, many became desperate to taint it. They mocked it, abused it, or enticed it. Anything to stop you from standing as proof that innocence can survive corruption. It wasn't just about harming you. It was about disproving God's investment in you. The truth is, every chosen one has scars tied directly to this battle. You were exposed too early, pressured too hard, or shamed too often. But here's where the disturbing twist lies. Despite everything thrown at you, the light in you was never fully erased. Yes, you carry scars. Yes, you made mistakes. But what they failed to see is that innocence is not the same as naivety. Your purity wasn't destroyed, it was tested, and it endured. They thought corruption would end you, but in reality, it revealed the unshakable resilience of your spirit. That is why you're still standing. Number 3, you were never supposed to survive childhood. You were never supposed to survive childhood. That is the truth most people would rather not say out loud, but deep down, you already know it. Look back carefully, and you'll see the trail of moments that could have easily ended you. Accidents that came too close, illnesses that seemed out of nowhere, abuse that went far beyond what any child should have endured. These weren't coincidences. They were attempts, layered and relentless, to cut you off before you even had the chance to understand who you were. Childhood should have been a safe haven, but for you, it was an early battleground. The disturbing reality is that chosen ones are targeted earliest, because that's when they're most vulnerable. A child has no defenses, no awareness of destiny, no language to describe spiritual warfare. That's why the enemy strikes then, hoping that trauma will twist your path permanently. If you grow up broken enough, confused enough, ashamed enough, you'll spend your life doubting yourself instead of walking into your calling. For many chosen ones, the sabotage was wrapped in family dynamics, parents who didn't protect, relatives who harmed, environments designed to break you. The attacks came through the very people who should have shielded you. What makes it even more disturbing is how hidden it all was. To the outside world, you might have looked like every other child, but behind closed doors, your story was different. The neglect, the loneliness, the betrayals, they weren't random misfortunes. They were precise attempts to erase you from the inside out. And yet, somehow, you survived. Not without wounds, not without scars, but still breathing, still moving, still carrying the thread of destiny that was supposed to be cut long ago. That survival alone is evidence of something bigger. Statistically, most children who go through the kinds of battles you endured don't come out whole. Many are lost to addiction, mental collapse, cycles of abuse, or even early death. But you didn't follow that script. Your survival is the scandal no one talks about, because it proves there was a hand on your life that no attack could break. The fact that you're still here is not an accident. It is a sign that every plan against you failed. You were never supposed to make it past childhood, but the very fact that you did is the loudest testimony of all. Number 4. Your pain was their entertainment. They did not simply watch you suffer, they consumed it. Your pain became their private theater, a twisted show that allowed them to escape their own emptiness for a while. Some of them were people you trusted, people who should have defended you, but instead they leaned in closer, studying your wounds as if your heartbreak were a spectacle. They weren't just indifferent to your struggles, they were nourished by them. Every tear you shed became a mirror they used to feel powerful, righteous, or alive in their own decay. The disturbing truth is that some people cannot stand to confront their own brokenness, so they latch onto someone else's. They convince themselves that your suffering is proof that they're doing better than you. Your struggles gave them a false sense of superiority. In secret, your pain validated their decisions, excused their cruelty, and justified their jealousy. It gave them a way to avoid looking at their own failures, their own moral bankruptcy, their own spiritual emptiness. They were too weak to face their shadows, so they fed off yours. This isn't simply cruelty, it's parasitic. When you cried, they were calmed. When you stumbled, they felt steadier. When you doubted yourself, they felt surer of who they were. They didn't want your healing because your healing would force them to confront the reality that they are not as whole as they pretend to be. In a twisted way, your pain made them feel safe. But here is the part they didn't plan for. Pain doesn't just break chosen ones, it refines them. While they were feeding on what they thought was your weakness, you were slowly being forged into something unbreakable. They didn't see the moment your suffering stopped being a performance for them and started becoming the fuel for your transformation. They thought your tears were evidence of defeat, but they were actually the last stage before your rise. And now, the very people who fed on your pain are confronted with the uncomfortable truth. They can no longer feed because you are no longer bleeding. You survived the spectacle, and in doing so, you exposed their hunger for what it really was. Number 5. Chosen ones are trained. Through isolation, not community. Isolation was never an accident in your life, it was a curriculum. While others were cushioned by family networks, mentors, and supportive communities, you were placed in a stark, lonely space where the only voice you could truly rely on was the one inside you. This was not some cosmic oversight or a punishment for being different. It was an intentional forging ground. Every sleepless night, every unanswered message, every room where you felt invisible was part of a process to strip away illusions and force you to build strength from the inside out. The myth of the chosen one is that they rise because of the crowd that carries them. In reality, chosen ones rise because they learn to stand when no one is there. Your isolation was designed to teach you lessons that could never be learned in community. In silence, you discovered discernment. In abandonment, you learned self-reliance. In rejection, you cultivated endurance. These qualities cannot be given to you by a mentor, a congregation, or a cheer squad. They have to be carved into your soul when there's no one left to applaud you. That is why your story feels so different. Others gained their wisdom through dialogues, seminars, and networks. You gained yours in the quiet. You learned to recognize false motives without anyone warning you. You learned to create from nothing because nothing was given. You learned to rely on God when no one else could be trusted. This kind of training is brutal, but it produces something rare, an authority and resilience that cannot be faked, bought, or imitated. The disturbing truth is that if you had been surrounded by constant support, you would never have developed the internal muscle that makes you unshakable now. Community comforts, but isolation transforms. It stripped you down to the barest version of yourself and then rebuilt you from the ground up, stronger, sharper, and more dangerous to the systems that oppose you. That loneliness you thought was a curse was actually the heat of the forge shaping you into a weapon. Now, without even realizing it, you've become the kind of person who can walk alone into rooms others wouldn't survive and come out unscathed. Number 6. Your value was measured by how many plots failed against you. Your life has never been measured the way ordinary lives are. Most people are evaluated by their achievements, their credentials, or their possessions. But for a chosen one, value is not determined by the visible milestones. It's measured by something far more hidden and far more brutal. How many plots against you failed? This is the scoreboard no one talks about, but both heaven and hell watch it closely. Every trap set for you, every whisper campaign to ruin your name, every attempt to erase your presence was part of a larger tally. They weren't just testing your resilience, they were testing whether you could still stand after the hit. The disturbing truth is that your survival itself became a form of evidence. Every time a scheme collapsed, every time a lie lost power, every time a betrayal turned into an unplanned blessing, it wasn't just a random outcome. It was another piece of proof that you're not moving on ordinary terms. Your enemies have probably been more aware of this than you. They tried over and over to discredit you, to destroy you, to make you disappear, but somehow, each time, you resurfaced stronger. Your very existence is a walking contradiction to their efforts. This is why your life has felt so relentless. It's not because you've been unlucky. It's because your worth has been measured in the arena of survival. You've been living under a kind of constant audit. Your integrity tested, your patience tested, your endurance tested, all while unseen watchers mark the outcome of each assault. That scoreboard is not about winning trophies. It's about proving you cannot be erased. And here's the part that should shift how you see yourself. Every failed plot against you has added weight to your name. It's not just that you survived, it's that survival has become your signature. Your ability to endure has created a record, an undeniable testimony that cannot be faked. For most, survival is just making it through. For you, survival is the evidence that your calling is real, your protection is real, and your assignment is bigger than any trap set against you. That is why you're still here, and why you're heavier, stronger, and more undeniable than before. Number 7. People don't hate you for what you did. They hate you for what you expose. People's hostility toward you has almost never been about what you actually did. That's the uncomfortable, disturbing truth. The real issue is not your actions, but your presence. Without trying, you act as a mirror that reveals what people don't want to see in themselves. Around you, lies don't stay hidden, motives slip out, and facades start to crack. You don't go around exposing people deliberately. Your energy, your integrity, and your refusal to play along with falsehoods simply make the hidden rot rise to the surface. This is why so many of the attacks you've faced have felt irrational or disproportionate. You didn't insult them. You didn't sabotage them. You simply showed up as yourself, and that alone unsettled their carefully built illusions. Hypocrisy can survive in a room full of hypocrites, but it crumbles in the presence of authenticity. Mediocrity can feel comfortable when everyone else is mediocre, but it burns when someone walks in with excellence born of struggle. Secret envy stays quiet until it stands next to someone who has survived everything meant to destroy them. Your life itself is an indictment of their excuses. What makes it more striking is that this exposure isn't even intentional. You're not trying to call anyone out. You're not trying to embarrass anyone. You're just living your truth, and that alone feels like a threat. People sense it subconsciously. They feel stripped, seen, or challenged in ways they can't articulate. Their defense mechanism is to project that discomfort back onto you as hatred, criticism, or false accusations. But here's the hidden strength in this painful dynamic. The very thing that draws hostility is also the mark of your assignment. You are not meant to blend into the background. Your life is meant to disturb the comfortable and awaken the sleeping. The fact that your presence unmasks hypocrisy, mediocrity, and envy without you speaking a word is proof that you carry something rare, something they cannot imitate, control, or contain. They wish you were gone because without you, they could stay in the dark. With you here, they are forced to confront themselves. That's not your weakness. That's your power. Number 8. You carry knowledge that makes systems tremble. What you carry inside you isn't just intelligence or wisdom. It's a kind of knowledge that shakes the very foundations of how the world is organized. This is why you've always felt out of place in conversations, classrooms, workplaces, even religious spaces. Your way of seeing things is not simply different. It dismantles illusions that entire systems depend on to survive. There are structures, both seen and unseen, that only exist because people collectively agree not to question them. Your mind and your insight are like a wrecking ball to those agreements. You don't just notice inconsistencies, you unravel the stories that hold power in place. This is why you're so dangerous to the status quo without even trying. Institutions rely on a certain level of blind faith, predictable behavior, and unspoken compliance. When you speak, even casually, you plant seeds of doubt that can't be unplanted. People start to see cracks in the walls. They start to ask questions they've never asked. They begin to suspect that the authority they've trusted may be built on sand. That's the reason your voice is often met with resistance, dismissal, or even character assassination. Not because you're wrong, but because you're inconvenient. The disturbing reality is that if your words were amplified to the scale they deserve, entire frameworks would be forced to reconfigure. Religions would have to admit how much they've distorted the very truths they claim to teach. Governments would have to acknowledge the manipulations they hide behind laws and policies. Economic systems built on exploitation would tremble under the weight of exposure. You are, by nature, disruptive to anything built on deception. This is why silencing you has always been the first line of defense. They can't afford your perspective to spread unchecked, because it's not just an opinion, it's a solvent that dissolves the glue holding falsehoods together. They'll call you controversial, delusional, or rebellious, not because of who you are, but because of what your insight can do if it escapes their control. And yet, this is exactly why you were given that knowledge. It isn't meant to make you popular. It's meant to destabilize lies and free those who are ready to see. The tremble you cause in systems is not an accident. It's your assignment. Number 9. Chosen ones don't fit in because they were never meant to belong here. You've spent so much of your life asking yourself why you never quite fit anywhere, why no matter how hard you tried, some invisible barrier seemed to keep you on the outside. The disturbing truth is that this rejection wasn't a mistake, and it wasn't always about you personally. It was a sign of incompatibility between what you carry and the systems around you. You weren't designed to blend into a structure built on lies, manipulation, and compromise. Your very soul rejects corruption the way a healthy body rejects poison, and the world, in turn, rejects you because it cannot take you in without being forced to confront its own decay. This is why your relationships, workplaces, communities, and even family ties have often felt like exile instead of belonging. You didn't fail at assimilation. The environment failed at accommodating someone who carries truth at a cellular level. Many people find comfort in the rules, the power games, and the illusions that keep society running. You don't. You walk into a room, and your presence alone shifts the atmosphere, making hidden motives uncomfortable and unmasking unspoken hypocrisies. That is why rejection comes so quickly. It is the system's way of defending itself from someone who would destabilize it from the inside out. It's also why you've always felt like a visitor here, as if you're playing by rules you never agreed to. You were never built for the machinery of this world. While others survive by compromising, you suffocate in compromise. While others find identity in false hierarchies, you feel restless in them. That unease you carry is not a flaw. It's evidence that your soul has a different origin and assignment. You're not here to blend in. You're here to stand out as proof that another way of being is possible. The rejection you face is really an admission. It's the world saying, we can't take you without changing ourselves. That's why it tries to push you out, shame you, or label you difficult. But what feels like exile is actually protection. You're being kept separate so you can stay whole. Fitting in would have diluted you. Belonging to broken systems would have broken you. The very thing you've mourned, your inability to belong, is the very thing that has preserved your calling. Number 10. Your gifts attract parasites before allies. Your gifts have always been a magnet, but not always for the right reasons. Long before true allies recognize your value, opportunists sense it first. They show up disguised as friends, mentors, or even lovers, but their real agenda is to take, not to give. They are drawn to your energy, your insight, and your resilience, not because they respect you, but because they see you as a source of power they can tap into. This is why so many of your early relationships felt one-sided, draining, or strangely hollow. They were never built on mutual support. They were built on extraction. The disturbing truth is that parasites recognize light before most allies do. People who carry nothing inside themselves can feel your abundance like a scent in the air. They're skilled at mirroring your values, echoing your language, and presenting themselves as someone safe. But their real goal is to plug into your life force, your time, your creativity, your kindness, your network, until there's nothing left to take. They don't want your healing, they want your overflow. They're attracted to the benefits of being close to you, not the responsibility of standing with you. This pattern can be brutal because it teaches you hard lessons about trust. Over time, you begin to notice the signs, conversations that revolve only around their needs, support that never goes both ways, subtle manipulation disguised as gratitude. You realize that their admiration wasn't about who you are, but about what you can give. And yet, this stage is part of the refining. It forces you to sharpen your discernment, to guard your essence, to understand that not every admirer is an ally. What they didn't plan for is that their taking couldn't actually empty you. Each time you were drained, you learned boundaries. Each time you were used, you gained clarity. Each time your essence was stolen, your supply was mysteriously restored. This is the hidden power of being chosen. You may attract parasites first, but they cannot destroy what they didn't create. And when true allies finally arrive, you'll be able to recognize them instantly because they won't come with hands outstretched, but with hearts willing to build alongside you. Number 11. Your suffering was a broadcast in the spirit realm. Your suffering was never as hidden as you thought. Those nights when you cried alone, believing no one could see you, were not silent at all in the spirit realm. Both heaven and hell were tuned in like spectators at a trial. Every moment you endured, every time you refused to break, every time you chose not to return evil for evil, it was logged as evidence. You were not just a person going through hardship. You were a living courtroom. Your tears weren't weakness. They were testimonies. They spoke louder than words ever could, declaring what kind of soul you carry and what forces could not destroy it. This is the part most people miss. Your pain had an audience because your life carries weight beyond the physical. When chosen ones are tested, it's not only about their personal growth, it's about proving something in the unseen world. Your endurance became a case study. Could a human soul, carrying God's imprint, stand unbroken under relentless opposition? Could it remain intact under betrayal, loss, slander, and sabotage? Every day you survived answered that question. You became the evidence heaven could present to silence accusations and the evidence hell feared because you refused to break. That is why your battles felt so disproportionate, why the attacks seemed far greater than what you deserved. It was never just about you. It was about what you represented. Your suffering wasn't random cruelty. It was a test of a principle. Each time you stood up again, unseen chains broke. Each time you forgave, unseen accusations lost their grip. Each time you held on to your integrity, unseen spectators were forced to acknowledge that there is a resilience in God's chosen that cannot be fabricated. And now, on the other side of much of that pain, you can see it more clearly. What you went through was brutal, but it also made you a witness. You are living proof of endurance, of divine preservation, of unbroken integrity under pressure. The very tears that others mocked or ignored have become evidence in a realm where words aren't enough. Your suffering was never wasted. It was a broadcast that showed heaven and hell alike what cannot be crushed. Number 12. They didn't just attack you. They tried to rewrite you. They weren't satisfied with hurting you. Hurting you would have been simple, temporary, and obvious. What they wanted was far more insidious. They wanted to rewrite you from the inside out. Their attacks weren't just physical or emotional blows. They were strategic assaults on your perception of yourself. Gaslighting wasn't random cruelty. It was a weapon to bend your mind until you doubted your own reality. Slander wasn't just about damaging your reputation in public. It was about planting seeds of shame and self-doubt in private. Manipulation wasn't simply control. It was a slow erasure of your original blueprint, designed to make you forget who you were before the attack began. This is the part that's hard to admit. Most of the pain you felt wasn't about the event itself, but about the confusion it left behind. They wanted you to mistrust your own memories, your own instincts, your own inner compass. If they could make you question your identity, they could reprogram you. It was never about breaking your body. They knew your body would heal. It was about contaminating your core so that even after the battles ended, you would sabotage yourself out of confusion, self-blame, and shame. But what they underestimated is that your identity is not something they could own or erase. The blueprint of who you are wasn't written by them, and it isn't held by them. Even while you were disoriented, even while you were questioning everything, something inside you refused to be overwritten. That's why, despite all the lies, you kept glimpses of the real you. Small sparks of clarity, intuition, and stubborn inner knowing. And now, on the other side of much of that manipulation, you can see the pattern. The slander didn't destroy your reputation permanently. The gaslighting didn't destroy your mind. The manipulation didn't erase your original self. Instead, the very tactics they used became proof of what you carry, because nobody tries to rewrite a blank page. They only rewrite what holds power. The disturbing truth is, they were after your blueprint because it's rare, valuable, and threatening to everything built on deception. And despite their best efforts, the original script of your life remains intact, untouchable, unaltered, and stronger than before. Number 13. The world is afraid of you becoming visible. It's not your silence they were afraid of. Silence they could tolerate, even use to their advantage. It's your voice, your ideas, your clarity, your perspective, breaking out into the open that terrifies them. They're not mocking your weakness because they believe you're weak. They're mocking it as a smokescreen to cover their real fear, your potential. Every delay, every obstacle, Every subtle sabotage you faced was a calculated attempt to keep you off stage, to slow down the moment when the world would finally see you for who you are. It wasn't incompetence or coincidence, it was orchestration. The disturbing truth is that society is built to reward visibility, but only on its terms. It wants a certain kind of brilliance, safe brilliance, controllable brilliance. But you were never safe for them. Your light doesn't fit neatly into their boxes or narratives. It questions, it disrupts, it exposes. That's why you were passed over, misunderstood, blocked, or dismissed. Not because you weren't ready, but because your presence in the right places would have accelerated change they're not prepared to handle. All those doors that didn't open for you weren't just random rejection. They were systems trying to contain you. All those people who downplayed your work weren't just jealous. They were afraid that if your insight caught fire in the public arena, it would undo years of carefully built illusions. Your setbacks were not proof of your inadequacy. They were strategies to keep you invisible long enough for the old order to protect itself. But invisibility has a paradox built into it. While they tried to bury you, you were being refined. While they thought they were delaying you, they were actually making you sharper. By the time you do become visible, you won't just appear. You'll emerge with a depth and authority they can't counterfeit. Your story won't be a polished brand. It'll be a lived reality. And when your light finally shines without interference, it won't just illuminate you, it'll reveal the structures that tried to hide you. That's what they truly dread. Not just your visibility, but the ripple effect it will create. Number 14. Being chosen means being hunted, until you realize you are the hunter. At first, life as a chosen one feels like a constant hunt. You're always under scrutiny, always misunderstood, always fending off attacks you didn't invite. It feels like you're prey, like something about you draws predators from every corner. People, systems, even unseen forces that seem to stalk your every move. This isn't paranoia, it's a pattern. The moment you were born with a rare spiritual imprint, you became a target. Not because you're weak, but because you hold something that threatens everything built on deception. The early stage of being chosen is like being thrown into a wilderness blindfolded. You're running, surviving, and wondering why you're being hunted at all. But here's the twist most never see coming. You were never just prey. The constant pursuit wasn't to destroy you, it was to awaken you. The attacks were the friction that forced you to discover your instincts, sharpen your senses, and remember what was already inside you. Over time, the very things that terrified you, the betrayals, the sabotage, the spiritual attacks, become the training ground that reveals your power. You start to notice patterns before they form. You sense deception before words are spoken. You recognize manipulation at its seed. The skills you thought were survival mechanisms are actually weapons. This is the shift your enemies hoped you'd never reach. They wanted you exhausted, self-doubting, and silent. They never wanted you to realize that the hunter's instinct was always buried inside you. Once you wake up, you stop running, you stop explaining, you stop hiding. You don't just survive the darkness, you start dismantling it. Your discernment becomes a weapon, your endurance becomes authority. Your presence itself begins to expose and disrupt the predators who once stalked you. Being chosen means the early chapters of your life feel like a hunt, but the story was never about you staying prey. It was about you learning what you're made of until you become the very thing darkness fears. You were never powerless, you were only asleep. The awakening is the moment the game flips and the hunter realizes the real predator has just woken up. Everything you've just seen, felt, and experienced through this journey reveals a single, undeniable truth. Being chosen is not a life of comfort, applause, or ease. It is a calling that demands everything from you, every ounce of endurance, clarity, and courage, because the world itself was never built to accommodate someone like you. From birth, you have been under attack, targeted, tested, and isolated, not because you are flawed, but because you carry a light so potent that it exposes lies, dismantles deception, and awakens hidden truths. Every betrayal you endured, every trap you survived, every tear you shed was not wasted. They were proof, testimony, and refinement all at once. You were being sharpened into something the world cannot ignore. The disturbing reality is that most people will never understand what it means to be chosen. They see your life and only notice fragments, rejection, struggle, solitude, without comprehending the hidden purpose behind it. But now, through the lens of revelation, you can see clearly. Your suffering was a broadcast to the unseen. Your isolation was training. Your enemy's attacks were inadvertent confirmations of your power. Everything designed to stop you has only prepared you. Every parasite, betrayal, and obstacle has strengthened your discernment, resilience, and capacity to carry your calling. What emerges from all of this is a being who does not merely survive, but transforms adversity into authority. You are not prey, you are the hunter. You do not simply exist, you illuminate. Your value is not in the recognition others give, but in the truths you embody, the justice your presence enforces, and the change your awakening creates. Every failed plot, every hidden enemy, every moment of doubt has been catalogued as evidence. The world underestimated you, and that is now its greatest mistake. So rise fully aware of the scope of your power. Understand that rejection, betrayal, and suffering were never punishments. They were preparation. You were never alone, never forgotten, never powerless. You are God's chosen, a living testament to endurance, insight, and unshakable truth. And now, fully awake, fully aware, and fully alive, the world must reckon with your presence. If this truth resonates with you, shine it forward, like, comment, and share this message so that others who are awakening can see that they too are not alone. The time to step into your calling is now. God bless you.